Gwen Moore. And I'm just going to introduce you. You're welcome to come up to the mic and speak, or Representative Gwen Moore was elected to represent Wisconsin's 4th Congressional District in 2004, making her the first African-American elected to Congress from the state of Wisconsin. A champion for women, Congresswoman Moore served as a Democratic co-chair of the Congressional Women's Caucus from 2011 to 2013. In this capacity and through her subsequent work, she has become a leader on issues like health insurance reform, women's health, maternal and infant mortality, and domestic violence, leading the charge to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act over the past 2 Congresses. She has also been an outspoken opponent of efforts to limit women's reproductive freedom and care, and we're honored to have her come speak to us today.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, and thank all of you. Thank you for convening this briefing. I do want to give a shout out to Ted Poe, my colleague, who is a former prosecutor and is so passionate about the Violence Against Women Act and making sure that it is resourced so that we can really do something to be effective. I can remember back in the day, I'll be 66 this year, God willing, when there was no violence against women. There were no hotlines you could call, there was nobody. And this program literally saves women's lives. I think the unfortunate thing about the Violence Against Women Act is that it was introduced and passed in 1994. Just a former Vice President Joe Biden was the original co-sponsor of the 1994 law. And it sort of passed almost by unanimous consent and was reauthorized thereafter without even a blip. I think in 2011, we kind of ran into a blip, because what the Violence Against Women Act did is not only that it took care of people, but it really did some of the things that you all must surely have as a mission, and that is to gather data, review those data, look at what best practices are, and to sort of fill in the gaps, policy gaps. And so that's what we did. We had prosecutors, people who ran homeless shelters, social workers, healthcare professionals, talk to us about where they saw gaps. And of course they saw gaps in immigration. Women were being held hostage by their immigration status and were often beaten, battered, because some perpetrator could wave their papers over their heads. We saw that young college women were particularly at risk because colleges and universities didn't really have a codified response to violence against women. And often, as we know, shamefully, many universities were much more concerned about their status and reputation as institutions than they were about women who would report violence or rapes on the campus. Where we really, so everybody kind of got that, those items to some extent. But the real sticking point that kept us from passing the reauthorization of VAWA for 2 cycles was a provision that I put in based on best practices, big gap in the legislation, where Native American law enforcement had no jurisdiction over violence that occurred on tribal lands where it included a non-Native man. What we found is that 59% of Native women were married to non-Native men. And we even heard stories of where the non-native man would beat his wife, call the sheriff, and say, yeah, I beat her, like right there on tribal land. And, you know, Barney Fife had no authority. But the tribal chairman, the tribal police, had no authority either. And so literally we found men who were going out to bars and whatever municipalities were around. They would literally drag women back onto the reservation to rape them. Because, I mean, the federal marshal might be 500 miles away, and they were the only ones that had any authority to do anything. And so this was very, very difficult to negotiate because I think that white men, quite frankly, did not want to come under the authority of tribal law enforcement. And so this was a really heavy lift. And finally, Vice President Joe Biden stepped in and directly negotiated with former House Majority Leader Eric Cantor. Because there were all kinds of negotiations going on and suggestions that we just kind of throw the Native American women under the bus so that we could get VAWA passed neat, have it kind of neat with a bow on it, kumbaya, and just pass it. And I said, oh no, we're not going to do that. And I invoked the spirit of Sojourner Truth to say, hey, ain't they women too? You know, the data and statistics for Native American women is very shocking. 3 out of 5 Native women have been assaulted in their lives. 34% of them will be raped. 59% of them occur in or near a private residence. And 59%, as I said, as of 2010, of Native women are married to non-Native men. And Native women are murdered at 10 times the national average on some reservations. And so we are very, very pleased. There are fixes that we still need to make in these provisions. There are some, as we roll this out, Congress appropriated $2.5 billion for this program. And I can feel time winding up, and I can see my staff person getting anxious. Because I can tell you that VAWA has proven that it is effective in saving lives. What we're concerned about, and we're concerned about any new administration. Any new administration comes in with the promise of balancing the budget, cutting waste, fraud, and abuse, and you know the lines. And so we're very, very concerned because President Trump's team, economic team, has been meeting, and they met before the January 20th inauguration and started talking about how they're going to realize savings and cuts of $10.5 trillion over 10 years. And really making a list and checking it twice. Let me make sure I got that number right. Checking it twice as to what kinds of things are going to be on the chopping block. So we don't know, but we're very, very concerned that VAWA sort of has come up in these discussions. So it's really, really important to let them know that organizations like this that are bipartisan, there's no partisanship. You know, as a Democrat, you kind of almost wish it were partisan. That just Democrats just wouldn't get their butts whooped, you know. But it doesn't work that way. You know, violence against women is nonpartisan, and the effort to reach out to our sisters has got to continue to be a priority of everybody. Thank you so much. I'm available for questions or
That's wonderful. Do you have any questions for everyone? Yes.
recommend us or how to be effectively reaching out to advocate on behalf of survivors?
You want to know something? I'm telling you, it was amazing to see that democracy actually does work. You know, it's messy, it's awkward, but it works. This place, I mean, we had Native American, but also, I forgot, LGBT women were also part of the best practices. Was to say our experience has been is that we have a very difficult time placing LGBTQ women as well. They show up at shelters and because of their sexual orientation are not allowed in some houses. And so we said we need to make sure that those resources are in place too. We had LGBTQ organizations here. We had Native American tribes. I mean, Native American tribes I never even heard of, girl. I mean, from Mississippi and Alabama and everywhere. And we had, of course, our domestic violence, our reliable domestic violence partners. And they just converged on Washington. I mean, this place was like crawling like roaches. It was everywhere. And that is the kind of campaign that really put a lot of pressure on them to work, because they were determined that they were not going to pass VAWA with those new provisions. Matter of fact, they didn't reauthorize it for a whole cycle. So the extent to which you all are all connected through social media and so forth, you saw what happened with the Women's March. It was organic and spontaneous. This is what we're going to have to continue to do to communicate what we want democracy to look like. You know, and it's important. You know, as a legislator, there's an inside game, but there's an outside game too. You know, this is not a spectator sport, democracy. And so that engagement and passion is felt and heard here on the Hill.
Questions? Yes.
Just along those lines, is it, I hear that it was heard and felt during the reauthorization of VAWA. Is it being heard and felt now? And are there ways that it can be heard and felt in a more, even more saliently?
Right, it was heard, but well, yeah, I mean, right now, because it's one thing to pass an authorization bill. Mm-hmm. You know, we got a lot of good stuff authorized, but the money has to be appropriated. By the way, I lead the Violence Against Women authorization letter every year. So thanks for raising that. You can call members of the Appropriation Committee, especially if you live in their districts. They respond to letters that they get. You know, there are all kinds of worthy projects. And so somebody's gonna write them, gonna organize and say, you just gotta fund the Boys and Girls Club. You just gotta fund the foreign operations budget. You just gotta build a wall, whatever. Your voices have gotta be heard. You gotta let the appropriators know that this is a funding priority.
Thank you.
In the back.
Oh, Representative Moore, you are like a rock star with VAWA, so thank you, and we need you now more than ever. And I just want to say, #SaveVAWA on Twitter and Facebook will get you to complete activism, and nnedv.org has action steps. I encourage all of you to use either, both, all. I'm sure follow your website because VAWA is on the chopping block. We need to be very concerned about that.
Right.
I'm with just everybody. I'm with you all.
I was just going to add, well, thank you so much, Congresswoman Moore. I'm part of the National Task Force to End Sexual and Domestic Violence Against Women, which is a coalition of national organizations that work on VAWA, the Family Violence Prevention and Services Act, and other other funding streams and programs and support. So this supports survivors, so we're hugely indebted to you, Congresswoman. more, but if folks have questions about, NNEDB is a great place. There are other organizations that work on the tribal issues or the LGBT issues, so if you have questions and want more information based on your particular interest areas, I'm happy to hang around and chat if you want to come up to me and get recommendations for organizations that you should be following.
I'm with NNEDB as well, so I can answer questions as well.
All right. See, we are organized. You remember that? Don't mourn, organize, you know? I mean, I really think that's the key, you know? It's great to be in America because we get to do this. We get to speak out and petition our government for what we value and what we need. And, you know, I've often said the National Network to End Domestic Violence, they know what I hope for. I just hope we could just work ourselves out of business. I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful if we just didn't need any money for this? You know, we should tell our appropriators that. I mean, we'll be happy when the day comes and we just don't need this service. But right now, we can see, you know, and you guys are scientists. I'm not a scientist, but I know that there's a great deal of reluctance to tie economic issues to violence, because we see women in all across the economic strata being victimized. But it is really hard not to notice that women who don't have any resources find themselves in a very, very precarious place with respect to violence and the threat of violence. When I walked in, I heard you talking about trafficking, you know, and of course that is a very particular, virulent form of violence. You know, it is certainly part of the panoply of violence that our telephone operators and prosecutors and run into every single day. And we need to have the resources to be there when these violent events occur.
Yes.
I have a question about drawing attention to certain issues that are potentially on the chopping block. And do you think that it's safe for us to bring attention to issues such as VAWA, or do you think that that'll put in jeopardy at all?
Well, I mean, you know, the way that, you know, what did they say? The squeaky wheel gets the oil. You know, there's nothing more that people would like than, you know, to be able to cut something where there's no constituency. You know, I'll give you an example. The home mortgage interest deduction. I mean, it is a huge budget buster. But you'd be hard-pressed to find a member of Congress who's willing to cut that because of how popular it is, how widespread it is, you know, as they look for savings. Because there's a huge constituency for that. And, you know, and what we have to be worried about is, I mean, is there a huge constituency for Head Start? Or for legal services? Or for VAWA? We have to create that noise. And that is what got VAWA reauthorized, is because of the noise we made. So we know we're out there. And you know, it's just time to get busy. And no, it won't hurt it to elucidate it.
Yes.
Are there any gold stars or examples in local governments or even countries abroad that we seek to emulate practices that are effective and that could be easily reproduced? Like when you're putting this bill together, or thinking about ways to just rapidly affect change and get people riled up.
You mean in terms of organizing?
Yeah, in terms of
organizing. I mean, we're the model. I mean, I think the civil rights movement and the women's rights, we're the model. for social change. We do it non-violently, you know, without, I mean, we're really proud of our tradition of elevating issues by what John Lewis would say, putting your body in the way. And that's right, I've been to jail with John Lewis. I tell you, watch out for that John Lewis. He's a humble guy, but you can end up in jail fooling around him. And he has taught us how to do it. And we're the model. We're the model for how to protest. I see my classmate coming in.
So we're extraordinarily appreciative of your time, and thank you so the genuineness and passion.
Let's hear it out for Gwen from Wisconsin. Strong voice and victims' rights.
Just briefly, real quick to orient people. So Congressman Jim Costa was sworn in as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives representing California's 16th Congressional District in January 2005. Costa's work to crack down on violent crime and advocate for victims' rights has been recognized by the National Organization for Victim Assistance, which named him recipient of the Donald E. Santorelli Public Policy Award for demonstrating outstanding public policy leadership, and we are thrilled to have him here.
I'm thrilled to be here with each and every one of you who truly are at the vanguard of protecting and advocating and working on behalf of victims of crime in America. Usually I get an introduction that is, for me, just suffices, and that's Amanda Seymour's friend. But she and I go way back, and many of you have had the honor to work with Annie, and she really kind of helped Congressman Ted Poe and I put together this Crime Victims Caucus when we first came up as rookies in 2004. And each and every one of you will really give us the sort of ability and the inspiration to represent those individuals who have sadly been attacked and who have been impacted. And these are our family members, these are our friends, these are our neighbors, these are people that we don't even know, but yet are so important to our community. And let me just say that the National Prevention Science Coalition to Improve Lives, that you are all part of this briefing is important. It's important to our Crime Victims Caucus. It's important for all the various efforts that you employ throughout the year. And coming to Washington to make your voices heard helps our caucus, helps Congressman Ted Poe, who does a terrific job, and all of those who are part of this bipartisan effort. When we think about the struggle we have taken just in the last several years in protecting the Violence Against Women's Act and getting it reauthorized, which was no small feat. It should not have been, but it was really a result of all of your collective efforts. And we could not have done it without you. You know, the Violence Against Women's Act not only provides financial support for programs that you're involved in directly, it also provides assistance for crime victims and survivors, and is a critical funding source for specialized training and staffing based on proven best practices. And many of you are involved in that effort to employ those best practices throughout law enforcement, prosecutors, and our judicial system. I know because I see that. I see that in Fresno and in Madera and Merced firsthand. I see your efforts making a difference. And so the work that you have been involved in to reduce violence against women by using an evidence-based prevention approach will help us use those government dollars and spread them as best we can judiciously. as we try to provide vital services to those victims who you see, because you're where the rubber meets the road. I mean, you see these victims in the most anguishing of situations, sometimes in some cases where they have been suffering from repeat offenders, even when they have court protected injunctions. As we know, that doesn't necessarily protect them. And you know, I talk to law enforcement officers, and I know you do as well, and they tell you the same thing. They tell me, you know, these are the most difficult cases in most instances that they have to deal with. I mean, they're called, and they have a situation where they, you know, have abuse that's taking place with the spouse, and in many instances it's repeated abuse, and in many instances it's taken a long time for that person to get enough courage to really call law enforcement. And then there's dependence, and there's all the other factors that come into play. So I just want to tell you that as long as I'm here, I will take every opportunity to say that any proposal to cut the Violence Against Women's Act funding, I will vigorously oppose. I will vigorously oppose that. Because any shortchanging, I mean, we don't have enough resources as it is to begin with, right? Any shortchanging of these grants is misplaced, and to be sure, it's short-sighted. And so, you know, since its passage in 1994, the Act has proven more than its effectiveness in reducing horrific crimes of domestic abuse, sexual assault, dating violence, stalking, and helping women recover from the abuse. Because what you often see, you know, I mean, these aren't statistics. The psychological damage that is inflicted beyond the physical damage is lasting. And sadly, in some cases, it's life-lasting. So I can't thank you enough. I mean, bottom line, VAWA, that's the first time I said that. I have a real thing with my staff. I don't like acronyms. We get in Washington speak, and it's, you know, if you say VAWA, it's, you know, of course, we all know what VAWA is. But the Violence Against Women's Act saves both lives and money. That's the bottom line. It saves both lives and money, and it helps you have the tools you need to do the incredible work you do. So, you know, we all know the facts. Some of us remember Dragnet and Sergeant Friday, right? Sergeant Gwen, you know, I know. No Friday. That's what I call it. But crime is an issue that recognizes no political parties, as Ted Cohen, I like to say, no ideologies, no congressional district boundary lines, and any effort to eliminate funding for the Violence Against Women's Act, funding for critical programs that it supports is a threat to individuals, communities, and public safety in America. And that's why you're here. That's why you care. That's why you have a passion in your heart to try to make a difference every day. And we try to, on your behalf, do our part. And I would be remiss if I didn't single out one person. You all deserve to be singled out, of course. But Christina Soberg, who's been carrying this banner in our office, is a tremendous resource. And for those of you who don't know her, you should get to know her. She's like Andy Seymour and I. She is from a small little college out in the West Coast, Fresno State. Go Dogs. Anyway, the real Dogs out west. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.